Aztec religion was made up of complex interactions with gods, dates, directions, and colors. It originated in northern Mexico but arrived in Mesoamerica in the start of the 13th century. Mexico's empire was at its highest with politics and religious systems intertwined with one another. But that begs the question, what was their religion, and who was their god? Huitzilopochtli, a deity who is the Aztec sun and war god. His mother Coatlicue conceived him after keeping in her bosom a ball of hummingbird feathers that fell from the sky. He had 400 brothers and one sister, Coyoxauhqui. Because of the circumstances of his conception, his brothers and sister considered him and his mother an abomination, and decided to kill them both. But Huitzilopochtli fended them off with his weapon, Xuicaudo, the turquoise snake. His siblings succeeded in killing his mother, Coatlicue. After that happened, he dismembered the body of his sister and threw her head into the sky, which then went on to become the moon. Thus, she became the moon goddess. His brothers scattered across the sky and became the stars. In order to keep Huitzilopochtli happy, the Aztecs would do human sacrifices in the name of Huitzilopochtli, and their blood would be said to strengthen the god, while the women danced the traditional serpent dance to images of Huitzilopochtli strung with garlands. So what was it that made people believe in him? The Aztecs believed that it was he who gave them safe passage and watched over them as he guided them away from Aztlan and all the way to the Valley of Mexico. Priests would show their hummingbirds for the soldiers who had fallen throughout the journey. They built a shrine for them in a small rocky island in the lake of the valley. It is said that an eagle landed in the shrine and devoured a snake. This is the image that is displayed on the Mexican flag. How did the Aztecs celebrate the dead? They celebrated Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. They honored the dead with festivals and lively celebrations. They believed that mourning or being sad would insult the dead, so they celebrated the life of the deceased. On this day, the dead is part of their community to celebrate with their loved ones, because they recognize death as a natural part of the human experience. Greek mythology can be considered the setting stone of life. The Greeks didn't follow a government of laws. They led a carefree life. The Greeks perceived life in their own image, built their own foundation, and colonized. One of the many grand things that they built was the legend of Greece's hero Achilles, who was widely considered one of the greatest warriors of all time. Achilles was essentially made to be invincible, with astonishing fighting skills and mastery in the strategic arts. Achilles was born of his mother Thetis, the sea goddess, and Peleus, a mortal king in a city of Thessaly. His mother, being a sea goddess, dipped Achilles in the river Styx when he was a baby. This gave him godlike strength and virtual indestructibility. That, being combined with his father's genetics, led to him being the ultimate warrior. Though Achilles was a valiant soldier, he also seemed to have some sense of compassion and understanding. A perfect example is when Achilles gave Hector's body back to Priam, Hector's father, after Priam begged and pleaded to give his son a proper funeral.
Let me say the prayers. Let me place 2 coins on his eyes for the boatman.
Despite the fact that Hector killed Achilles' comrade Patroclus, he was still able to come to an understanding with Priam. He knew that Hector deserved a proper burial. This showed that Achilles, despite being a warrior demigod, still had a human heart and was able to empathize with those around him. Achilles eventually rejoined the war against the Trojans, but by doing so, he would end up meeting his own demise at the hands of an angry but cowardly Paris. Paris was not known to be the most accurate of archers, but Achilles had angered Apollo during the war, so Apollo guided Paris's arrow. With one pull of the bow, the arrow struck Achilles in the heel, leading to the death of Greece's champion. Looking at Achilles' life, one could say that this is a warrior's death, one that Achilles knew was coming, but chose anyway. This is what Achilles wanted, to pass on from this world in a glorious battle, left to be remembered and talked about for all of eternity. Christianity is filled with many stories about how God and his son Jesus have interacted with humanity. After being born of humble beginnings, Jesus grew up, went out into the world, and performed many miracles throughout his life. He made the blind see, he drove out evil spirits and demons from the possessed, he even brought the dead back to life. Everything he did was to help others and bring light to the world. But all of that pales in comparison to his crucifixion and resurrection afterwards. The Romans believed that Jesus was a false prophet after he claimed to be the Son of God, the Messiah and Savior of the people of Jerusalem. Treason was the excuse that the Romans gave to execute him. They plotted with one of his disciples to kill him. Even though he knew there was a plot against him, he didn't fight back, but instead accepted his fate. After his mock trial filled with false witnesses, Jesus was set to be crucified. He held the cross on his shoulders and carried it all the way to the top of Mount Golgotha. Every step of the way, he was not alone. All around him, there were crowds that continued cheering for him to be executed and tortured. As he continued to the mountain, there were also those who still believed in him that mourned him in his pain. Followers and family members, such as his mother Mary.
you and me will punish.
But his faith was stronger than his pain. He still continued speaking forgiveness for all who would listen. After he reached the top, they nailed his hands and feet to the cross. They continued mocking him and torturing him, but still, Jesus raised his head to the heavens and asked his Father to forgive them. As death finally overtook him, he simply said the words, "It is finished." His followers stood at his feet as he hung from the cross. People that still loved him and knew of his miracles and everlasting work. They would mourn him and bury him. There's a reason that when many other myths have been passed on as just that, myths and legends, there are still countless souls in the world still believing in Jesus as truth. There has been no other god in any legend who sacrificed himself for humanity. But here stands a being of ultimate power, and he only used it to bring good to the world. An innocent man who let himself be sacrificed just so no one else would have to be. That is the story of the Messiah from Bethlehem. After all his pain and suffering, there was a hope. There was a light waiting to rise, ready to change the world again.